Welcome into the Inside Bassmaster Podcast presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, episode 157 of the podcast. And if you're just joining us, we're right here towards the end of Thanksgiving as it goes into December. We're in that good in-between time period where that means there is one more B.A.S.S tournament on the horizon. That is the team championship, one spot in the classic that'll be decided there. But I'm your host, as usual, Ronnie Moore, my co-host, like always, Kyle, Jessie. And Kyle, today's episode is a little bit different. We're not going to have any professional fishermen on the podcast as a guest, but we're going to have a lot of people who have been in the boats with the pros and have some testimonials, some fun stories as well. We're talking about the Marshal program because Marshal signups and registration for the 2024 Elite Series season and the Classic are right here upon us. And it's a great opportunity for a random Joe who loves the sport of bass fishing to get up close and personal with their favorite athlete.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I'd say just about every single Elite Series tournament I've covered, I wish I could switch spots with a Marshal and just get to watch this stuff with no work involved, just be a part of an Elite Series Pros Day. And they do help us tremendously with coverage as well. Not that they have to, but they certainly help out a lot with Bass Track, Skype, obviously, bonus coverage, sending photos in for the blog and things of that nature. Life as a Marshal's pretty sweet, I'll be honest. I mean, it's literally getting to spend a day in the boat with an Elite Series pro and, again, not be required to do any work. So, like I said, I've been there's been more than a couple of times I wish I could just flip spots and just not have to go edit photos in the media trailer or something like that.
Well, I will say that they don't have to do work, but some of the Marshals that we have dubbed as super Marshals, they put in a lot of work. They get the opportunity to be in the boat with these guys. They don't only just see it for their own gain. They'll watch Bassmaster Live when they're no longer being a Marshal later that week, later that season. They'll text me details about a guy like, hey, he was telling me at Lake Murray that he was really looking forward to Smith Lake, coming up and why. And then when it comes to fruition and they catch them, it puts all the pieces of the puzzle together. Plus, some of these guys, they are just as good at videoing Tackle Tip Tuesdays or fish catches as we would be in the back of the boat, and they've got their camera rolling at all of the key moments. I'm pretty sure some of these Marshals have a second phone that has 164 free gigabytes of just videos that they just roll all day and delete the ones that have nothing in them because they capture some of the best moments that you're wondering how that happened. So on today's episode of the podcast, we're going to get to talk to three different perspectives. We're going to talk to Pat Renwick, host of StrayCasts. He has been in the boat as a Marshal all season long with the Bassmaster Elite Series in 2023, obviously getting to see some of the favorite anglers on the beloved tour up close and personal. And then we've got two guys that you may not know by name, but you know that they were the Marshal who was so lucky to be in the boat with some key moments. Guys like Les Cook and Rick Moore. They are guys who travel around and have been Elite Series Marshals or Classic Marshals. I mean, 6, 7 maybe tournaments out of 10 a year. They are highly active, and they've done so for the last 4, 5, 6 years. I remember whenever I helped run the Marshal program and Bass Track and things like that, I would have Marshals like Marshal Brian, who would be at 20 years worth of these things. Like, he was fishing as a co-angler when the co-anglers were on the Elite Series, and he's still riding in the boat with these guys today. So not everybody's just an old retired person. We've got 16-year-old guys. We've got middle-aged guys. We have really passionate people. And like Kyle Patrick, Elite Series rookie for next year, we've even had future Elite pros riding along when they were young kids. So Marshal program's great. It definitely means something to me as I helped with Bass Track for a good portion of my career before coming to TV.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it there, but that's what I've always thought. It always puts a smile on my face to see the younger Marshals, especially, get in the boat with these guys. A lot of times you hear stories of it being a birthday gift or a Christmas gift or whatever it may be. And as an angler, regardless if you're a younger guy or an older guy, getting to spend time in the boat with a Bassmaster Elite Series pro in competition, where he's not necessarily trying to sell you something. He's not trying to do this, do that. He's trying to catch the 5 biggest bass that he can and bring them back into the weigh-in. So, I mean, that you're going to get a genuine experience. You're going to have plenty of stories to tell, that's for sure. And I think that's what we're going to try to get out of these guys today. But, I mean, talk about a treat, like I said, especially for like a younger angler trying to learn something, because it's been said for years and years and years, and it's true. as an angler, you gather experience fishing with all sorts of different people. You know, when I fish with you, you might gain something from me and vice versa that we might not do otherwise. And I feel like everybody I've ever fished with, ever spent time in the boat with, that's been true. Who better to learn from than the Bassmaster Elite Series pros? I mean, it really doesn't get any better than that. That's for sure.
If you could go hang out with Patrick Mahomes for his pregame prep or be on the sidelines when he comes back to the coaches to hear them discuss things, that is exactly what it is for an Elite Series day on the water. $99 gets you 2 days on the water, gets you apparel and gear and access to pros and a wealth of knowledge. You may be with a guy that you necessarily weren't expecting to be with or looking forward to being with and learn something that day or become a fan of them. Everybody's got a story to be told. So let's get our first guest in here, the wild and crazy Pat Renwick, host of StrayCasts. He's definitely is ate up with the bass fishing bug. So to have him in the boat as a marshal, there's probably been some times where the guys are like, "Hey Pat, I'm gonna need you to simmer down, son," because Renwick definitely brings it at all times. Kyle, we mentioned it. This guy doesn't really need an introduction. It is Kyle's best friend, Pat Renwick, the host of StrayCasts. And Pat, you've been in the industry for a while now, but in 2023, you got to be in the boat with a lot of pros for a lot of days of competition. First off, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. But tell me what the Elite Series and the field of anglers mean to you, especially when you get to be up close and personal with them in the boat for the heat of the competition.
Boys, I think it's no secret that I 500% bleed blue and gold. Okay. And I'm a big advocate of Mr. Scott's dream. And let me tell you, 2023 was a year of dreams come true for this kid. That's for sure, bud. Being a Bassmaster Marshal, no doubt about it. Magic happened out there for sure.
Pat, yes. I gotta ask on during the Elite Series, naturally, I've seen you get paired up with a lot of guys that you're super linear with, I guess, super close with. It's got to be just like fishing with them, you know, when they're not in the Elite Series. I gotta ask though, surely you've been in the boat with some guys that don't know what you're all about, and by the time the day gets rolling, they're like, "What did I get myself into?" So I just got to know if you've got a story like that, we got to hear it.
Well, I really don't. I marshaled a few years ago, and it was at Pickwick is what it was. And I had Kyle Welcher, 2024 AOI Kyle Welcher, or 23, sorry, AOI Kyle Welcher. I had Brandon Lester and also John Cox, I think. So anyway, I had Scotty Martin.
That's right.
So, yeah, we had.
You went super far from takeoff, about 46 feet.
Long run.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was right there, and he's just jacking sixes. But no, that was a good time. I think I had never met Kyle Welcher before, so I don't think he had known what to think of me. And honestly, I was kind of quiet with him that day. It was the day. If you remember that derb, the first day was called to be because of weather. Something was going on, and so I had Kyle on the second day, which was the first day. And that night before, I was busy saving Corey Johnston from things, so I was up late.
That does not surprise me at all. So Welcher,
I was kind of quiet that day. And then,
how long did it take him to butter up to you?
I don't know. Kyle and I were very quiet the entire time. And he just kept telling me, "Don't tell anybody about this secret spinner bait that I'm using," which I immediately called all my friends about. Yes.
So Pat, what drew you to reach out to Bass to be able to be a marshal? Kyle and I were talking before we brought you on about, marshal program being close to, near and dear to our hearts. We work with them. I obviously helped set up Bass Track for a couple years when I was on the road. And so these guys come from all walks of life. They want to get in the boat and learn. You're also gaining more familiarity with anglers, but you're also gaining the opportunity to pick their brains to use later in other content shows, ask questions, those intimate moments that you have where they lost one, but then they rebounded from it. No one else gets to experience that other than marshals in the boat, unless there's a camera guy with them.
Yeah, it's a very unique experience for a fan of this sport, because no other sport do you have these type of opportunities. Let's just be frank about it. And you get a chance to, as I have, be paired up with some of my idols, some of my grand inspirers, the inspiration to things that I do in everyday life. I've had an opportunity to share the boat with some of these gentlemen. And what you learn is, it's a constant learn. Let me explain that. So you spend, what is a day in the boat? 8 hours with a guy? And it doesn't always sink in at that moment. But further down the road, as you start to think about that day and dwell on it, months later, you think about things that were actually going on. And I think that's a fascinating part of it. It's spending that much time with a person in any capacity, you learn a little bit about them. And to answer your question, Ronnie, about what you and Kyle were talking about, I've got to learn more about these guys than I already knew. I've been broadcasting for 12 years now, and I've interviewed most of these gentlemen. But when you spend time in the boat with somebody, you learn about somebody. You know what I mean, boys? You know what I mean?
Their favorite words to say when they land one or lose one.
Yeah, dadgummit.
I've always had the theory that same with what you're saying, that like you'll never be closer in life, maybe outside of like your significant other, like direct family, than like your fishing partner who you've spent time in the boat with, because like there's nothing left to say on the table like that hasn't been said when you're with your fishing partner. So I imagine getting to experience that with a Bassmaster Elite Series pro is got to be pretty thrilling.
It really is. And Kyle, you absolutely have the best smile in bass fishing. I hope you know that. For those on,
I think you might be the only person that's told me.
Say it again, Kyle.
I said, I think you're the only person that's told me that, but you make sure to tell me that just about at least once a tournament.
That's $1 million smile.
Bass and Angel.
Yeah, you're the Bass and Angel, Ronnie Moore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you are.
I'm 30 now, so I can't be that. I gotta hand that off at some point, though. So Kyle will be the heir apparent to the Bass and Angel brand.
Well, I don't know. Once an angel, always an angel, unless you go over to the other side. You know what I mean, Mr. Moore?
I don't want to be a fallen angel at all.
Don't do it, Ronnie.
So, Pat, what was maybe since you're from the North Country, smallmouth.
You can call me a Yankee. I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm cheering up with my my adjacentness to the Mason-Dixon line, where you can call me a Yankee.
I will call you. Okay, so you're a Northerner, aka a Yankee.
Mr. Scott would have called me a Yankee.
Maybe you haven't been to some of these bodies of water. Has there been a body of water that you went and traveled to this year that you learned a whole bunch about bassing? Not the angler, not the stories, not the personalities, but you went to a body of water you'd either not been familiar with and you just absolutely fell in love with it, or learned so much about it that you're like, man, that would be, I want to go back there, or I hope they come back here for an elite event.
So in 23, I did 4 events with you guys.
Okay.
And that was Okeechobee, Seminole, Murray, and Lake St. Clair. I'm familiar with Okeechobee. I lived out in Florida for many years. I'm also familiar with St. Clair. I visit there quite often. As far as Seminole and Murray, I had been on Murray before with my buds from Berkeley and stuff, and messed around there. But to get to the point, every single tournament, I learned something. Like, yeah, about the angler, of course. But, dude, I learned about bassing in every event.
You probably don't have any blueback hair.
I learned about the mental side.
Yeah.
I learned about the physical side. I learned about the angling side. I learned what to eat. You know what I mean? I learned how to do yoga with Rick Clunn. You don't tell me, Ronnie Moore and Kyle Jessie.
Well, tell us about that then. I want to know all about yoga and Rick Clunn. If he is going to be going into his 50th B.A.S.S season, and I believe either the Harris Chain event or it'll be the St. John's River event will be event number 500 for Rick. So is yoga the key to 50 years as an Elite Series angler?
No, I'm going to answer that for Rick and say no, that is not his key to success. Let me back up a second and say one of the cool things about being in broadcasting, Ronnie, for this amount of years is I actually get to become friends with a lot of the people that I interview. And I have studied Rick Clunn since I was a little boy. I don't mean that to sound weird in any way. The guy has set me. Bud, I got to tell you something, man. I've gotten trouble in my life a lot. And
no,
yeah, I have, Ronnie. I'm a little rough around the edges sometimes. You know what I mean? But bass fishing has always kept me out of getting in too much trouble. And Clunn's philosophies help me in my everyday life. He has some cool things that he does. So, I'm getting off track, but it's to make a point. I got to become friends with a lot of people in this industry, and it's very special that this year I've become friends with the Clunn family, and Melissa and Rick, and they're very special to my heart, and just to have that happen, but I can't even tell you that Rick Clunn knows who I am. Okay, yeah. That's silly. That's silly talk. Anyway,
Kyle and I have both experienced that. I mean, just the other day, I was up at Larry Nixon's house shooting some videos with him before, his subsequent, for sure retirement from the sport. And we were just sitting there sharing stories. And I was like, what the heck am I doing up at Larry Nixon's house in the middle of nowhere shooting video? Like, how cool is that? And he said, thanks, Ronnie, and texts afterward. I'm like, I should be thanking you to a level that it gets annoying, but this is super cool. So Kyle's got those same stories as you're like, am I doing? It's like you're out of body. Like what am I doing right now? My 15-year-old me never would have believed I'm doing this moment.
100%, Ron Moore, 100%. And look at Kyle smiling. He knows. Kyle's just smiling. He knows. Hey, let me tell you something. I'm going to answer your question. I talk a lot. I'm a talk show host, but listen. So why Rick Clunn why he's been successful for 50 years is because he's a beast.
Yeah.
Okay. And he understands the water, the earth, and the whole bass galaxy. And most important, the whole Microtoparis family. Okay. But here's why he does yoga. Every
AKA
time
Bass, if you don't know that, AKA Bass. Yes.
Yes. So anyway, he does it for relief because Rick, as he gets up there in age, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. I think he might. I believe we talked about it on the StrayCasts show with him, but he does it. He said every time he does those stretching yoga exercises, it gives him another 10 to 15 minutes of relief for him to fluidly cast and be one.
And so, it's mesmerizing. I mean, hitting a wave and breaking a vertebrae and driving and sitting on a cushion or casting. Like, dude, there's times where I'm like, man, I'm 29 or 30 and I'm in studio looking at the big waves that Kyle Jessie's got to be taking photos out in, or these anglers got to run out in at 60 miles an hour if they don't want to waste time. And Kyle, frankly, I wonder why we do it sometimes or how they do it sometimes while I'm in studio. I'm glad I don't have to do it. So for Rick, at times he probably...
You're on a chalkboard, Ronnie. They're riding 4-footers. Okay?
Exactly. 8-footers according to fishermen. But 4-footers in general. Yes.
8-footer, man. I'd like to thank Mercury for getting me back in them 8-footers. They're only 2.5, but my Mercury got me through the 8.
you didn't get to see those.
What a myth, just in general, how much of a myth that is. Like what is nobody really knows what a real wave is. Like it's distance, like it's 4 foot, 6 foot, 10 foot.
They take flip sticks out.
It doesn't even matter.
Flipping sticks out, Kyle, and they just measure them real quick.
It's insane. Pat, I gotta, you're a storyteller. I've heard you tell plenty of stories to me on your show. Not me on your show, because you've never had me on your show, but
here we go again.
Love it.
On both instances is the point I'm getting at. And naturally, you have such a relationship with a lot of these guys that opens them up and really allows them to be themselves in a lot of ways. I got to know, is there a story you have from any of the guys you've rode with where like going into it, you weren't really sure what was going to be the case. And then going away from it, you were like, that guy's completely different than what I thought he would have been like.
No, not completely different. But maybe having a characteristic or a trait that I didn't expect, or that being sense of humor, perhaps, or anger at the, those different types of things that you learn in that martial program. That's what you witness. Now, like, there's a lot of examples that I want to tell you guys, but I can't tell.
Okay. Sure.
Like, I learned so much that it's just like, what happens in the Marshal program stays in the Marshal program. You know what I mean? Sometimes.
Brotherhood.
Yeah, you know what I mean? The first rule of the Marshal program is you don't give up some things in the Marshal program.
I will say the one interesting character that you've been able to be in the boat with a couple times is John Cox. We all love John. He has carved out a niche in this industry, one that is waning. We see guys maybe do what he does, but in a fiberglass boat, that style of fishing, but that window of time is necessarily, you can't just do that anymore in this era of technology and learning and adaptation and growth. So being with John in the boat, have there been conversations about maybe the technology aspect of the sport, where it's going, how he sees himself using it? Because a lot of times he launches his boat without graphs or without a active target or a forward facing sonar on there. But I know there's been times he's put it on there, and I know that he's not a dummy. And so I know that he knows how to do it. It's just, he just figures out ways to not do. So have you had that conversation about that aspect?
Many times. Actually, John and I I consider us close friends. We talk often and
blood brothers.
Yeah. You know what I mean. We're both from Florida. You know what happens in Florida. You know what I mean. Well, I mean, I lived in Florida for a while, so you can kind of tell. But anyway, so with John is kind of like the Ferris Bueller of bass fishing. Are you boys familiar with Ferris Bueller?
It's his day off.
Familiar with his day off.
Well, no matter, Ferris can't do wrong, and Ferris can like, there could be 14 semis going across the street, and Ferris could be on the cell phone and not looking and just walk through all 14 cell phone or semis unscathed. John Cox has a tendency to just Ferris Bueller his way through things beautifully. And I'll give you a couple examples about technology. First time I was practicing with him on Pickwick, and he's like, Pat, I got a spot. We got to check out. And we're all the way at the dam. We were by the bra tree. You know the bra tree, or the whatever that is on Pickwick?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so by the trestle.
We're all the way over there chasing brown fish. And he's like, I know where there's some fish. Da, 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 da. But we run for 45 minutes in the crest line. And we're about 45 minutes down. We still got some to go. He's like, oh no. And I'm like, what's wrong, Johnny? What happened? It's like, dude, I thought we were on Kentucky Lake. We're on Pickwick. This isn't even the right. And he was looking at a map. So that kind of gives you an idea.
You can get to Kentucky Lake from Pickwick, but that's a long ways.
Yeah, dude, we were going. I mean, just going. And that's when John had the I believe he had the Frohawk going too. So it was actually cool. There's a lot of flowage on that 45-minute drive. But John seriously said, he's like, it must have been at Murray. I don't know where it was. I can't remember. It was at the end of the year, and he was in contention for AOY still. Yeah, because it was coming up to the northern swing. That's what it was. And he's like, man, I've been thinking about putting that periscope on my boat, that forward facer. And I'm like, no way. And he's like, I've really been thinking about it. And I'm like, that's on you, bud. That's your deal. And he said, it sure would be cool to win AOY without it. And I said, yeah, Johnny, yeah. And that's about all it was.
And then he didn't necessarily win.
He said that, man. I thought he was playing with me, but he was seriously thinking about putting that puck on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the devil, even though some may call it the devil.
No, I'm not saying that. Ronnie.
No. I'm saying that, like,
yeah.
we won't look down upon John Cox if he does it, especially if he starts catching some smallmouth in good proportions. We just like to see more John we can get, the better.
Yeah, John is uncancelable. Whatever he does is fine with the whole Bass Galaxy, okay?
He even had his own juice bottled up.
Look, Pat, we didn't have you on the show just to come on here and complain about forward-facing sonar. That's not what this is about.
We do that every single episode.
I don't even, dude, if I had one, I'd use it. I'm trying to get one free right now.
Every episode we talk about it, even if we're not talking about it.
Like somehow it gets brought up.
Oh, you know it.
It's
called a periscope, guys.
Oh,
it's a
sorry.
Periscope.
Kaleidoscope.
That's
when two of them hit each other.
Did you hear on the? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, John Cox was amazing. So I got to finish about him while we're talking about him. On the first derb of the year was Okeechobee with him. And dude, that guy, everybody's like, oh, that dude's great with the general or whatever. We did a video, it's called Praying for the Big O. And it got 1 million views. I swear it's crazy. We don't know. I think it's because we titled it Praying for the Big O. But John smashing big ones on the Berkeley Speedworm deal, bud. I mean, yikes. I've never seen. There's certain things I guess you can't talk about. And one of them is how he does that speedworm. The other one was a secret I learned in a hot yoga class during a Lake Murray event with John Cox. We happened to be in the middle of a hot yoga class in a back cove of Lake Murray. It's true. And you asked John, there was hot yoga going on, and we were instructors all of a sudden. But what I learned from John was the most sneakiest secret spawning rig ever. And I cannot talk about it. Like, there's a couple of my buds that know.
Which means you've talked about it, which means you've already broken the oath, so you got to tell us.
Matt, because I had to, but that's all.
Only his nearest competitors, Kyle.
Yeah.
Well, Pat, what you got? What do you have coming up on StrayCasts? Anything for the post Turkey Day, pre-Christmas spectacular?
Yeah. We have December's a big month. We actually have a B.A.S.S special featuring Kyle Jessie coming up in the month of December. It's pretty much I'm just gonna turn it on and be like, "Hey Kyle, how you doing?" Then I'm gonna go make some frozen pizza and I'll be back up in an hour. It's your show. No, but
I thought we were going to do a repeat of last year's show where we had everybody from Bass on except for me. I thought that was what we were going to do this year.
Jeez Louise. You know what? I can't keep everybody happy. Big Papa can't do it all. Sorry.
He's got mouths to feed, Kyle, and you're not one of them.
Hey, come on.
You got a big December.
I mean, in December, we're doing a Bass show for real. Kyle's on it. Ronnie's not. Also, we got Z-Bob. Zona Train is coming on in December. Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like, I have some amazing advertising partners on StrayCasts these days, and they give me a lot of freedom, and I appreciate that. I want to thank them for that because, like, I don't just do a show to do a show. When I do a show, I'm gonna knock you in the face. You know what I mean? That's what I'm doing, and that's Southside style. That's Chicago
don't mess up
style.
Kyle's smile.
Never. That's it. Your parents are proud of that. I got to tell you. Hey, guys, there's a lot of. I feel like that we wouldn't do justice if I didn't run down this deal on this Marshal program, just so people understand the magic of this. For sure. And maybe comprehend some of the beautiful things I got to experience. So first off, Okeechobee, day one, Larry Nixon. That's who I had. Larry Nixon. The general, dude.
How'd you do that? Because we had a camera in the boat with Larry Nixon on day one.
Oh, day two,
Okay.
Larry
I was
Nixon.
about to say,
Day
don't
two.
be lying, Pat.
I don't know. Come on.
I mean, I know the stats. I know.
Well, anyway, don't you, Ronnie Moore.
Okay, day two, Larry Nixon.
Day one, day two, catch 44, 6.5 dozen of the other. Kyle, Jessie, smile, whatever. All right, ready? So I had Nixon, dude. Like, that's crazy. Talk about meticulous, right? Meticulous. Still. And the fact that he observes everything going on around him, even at Larry's age. It's kind of, I was saddened to hear of his retirement today. Again, his retirement again. It was nice that we had him back for a year, you know? Yeah, it was nice.
46 years of his career, and he was glad to end it with B.A.S.S, which is super cool. Hey, I've been to his place, like I said, in Arkansas. There is no reason for him to leave there other than to get groceries. And honestly, he's got enough wildlife around. He doesn't even need to leave to get groceries. But beautiful place. And man, first Bass millionaire. Oh.
The only time he needs to leave is Wednesday nights to go play poker with the boys. That's it.
That's true.
That's the only time Larry needs to leave the house now. Hey,
so tell us some more, guys.
Also on Big O, I had Johnny Cox, as I told you, and Brandon Tapp. 22. And that was a great time. They, experiencing he and and just the whole deal with the
Kyle
just the brand, the whole Brandon Palaniuk package is amazing,
and being reigning AOI at that point.
Yeah, and then just how good Brandon really is without even thinking about being good.
Yeah,
kind of like we were talking about Johnny Cox. Brandon just you guys don't call him the prodigy for nothing. I think Dave gave him that name. I mean,
it's got gills.
Yikes. Yeah, he sure does. He sure does. Okay, Seminole. I did Lake Seminole next. I toured with you guys. I was like a rock star. So I went to Seminole next. And day one, I think, Ronnie, correct me if I'm wrong. David Fritz. Is that when I had Fritz and I was highballing his weight?
Yeah, Ronnie? You highballed his weight pretty good that day. But you were with Fritz. You got one part correct.
Yeah. My weights were right on. You the weights ended up being there, but I just told you I had more. Yeah. So the weights were correct on the Bass Track. I'm just like, no, it's way more.
You talked to, he's got 20 on Bass Track, but he's got 27 actually.
He got 26. 27, 27. Yeah. But here, let me tell you this, man. You know what I really learned with David Fritz that day? If you're not feeling everything your crankbait does, you're not throwing a crankbait. Like, you don't know how many times he said that. And also that he can do amazing things with a pocket knife. Like, put new hooks on, tie knots, do whatever, open his lunch. Yeah, not me, no. But no, watching Fritz and watching him watch the flasher and watching him sit down and wind all day. He's like, I think some of his success when you put him in a situation where it's like a winder's derb, like Seminole was in some instances, he was hitting stumps and, off of some of the spots that he had won the derb off there. Can't think of the year right now. You noticed with Fritz that everything has purpose. Everything has purpose with that guy out. And wow, watch. Could you sit down and wind a plug all day? I couldn't do it.
I kind of tried to do it back in the day because he's the founder of High Rock Lake, which was my home lake growing up. And so he made the crankbait famous there. And so you try to emulate him, but I had to stand up once in a while,
So he cranks with braid. Yep. And he gave me some of the braid that he uses to crank with. And I came home and tried it and I adjusted my tackle and this and that. I don't know how he does it. I couldn't do it. I tried. I gave it a God's honest try. Hey, I know you guys are pressed here, but check this out. I feel it'd be an injustice if we didn't mention Lake Murray and the time I got to spend with Mr. Greg Hackney.
Yeah, John Cox with hot yoga and Greg Hackney that week.
Yeah, Hackney was day 1. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
And then Cox was day 2, I think. But so Hack Attack, and no disrespect at all to any of the other anglers that I fished with, that's the best angler I've ever been in a boat with, dude. Greg Hackney's the best fisherman I've ever been in a boat with. I mean, versatile, dude. He's like, he might not look, I don't mean any disrespect by it. We're both kind of forest creatures, Hackney and I. And
you
he
can
may
mean
not
utmost,
look
utmost disrespect. That's fine.
he might not look in place with a spin pole, but boy, can he jack him with it. And then the next second, he's picking up a gosh dang 8-foot flip stick and popping him in the boat. And then the next minute, he's got a swim bait on and jacking him. I mean, he does everything. I saw it in Aaron Martin's, sharing a boat with Aaron Martin's. I've seen that. I also see it in Seth Fighter, but and I had Seth. Oh, we got to talk about. Never mind.
I'll say this: if you want to get in the boat with Greg Hackney, like you did as a marshal, we put up day 3 at Lake Seminole the other day in a new thing we're calling Unfiltered, and it's every single camera clip of Greg Hackney's day, just putting a timeline so you could watch his whole day from takeoff. I learned he had Snapchat, which is something that the kids are doing these days. I learned that Greg Snapchats his family, and you can see all day long of a day of competition with him. And I think that's going to be something that fans are going to enjoy to see after the tournaments that we just pick a random guy that didn't win and put their full day together and let you watch it. Some magic happen as they break it down.
That's outstanding. I can't wait to watch it. But
it's on our YouTube.
Dude, he's amazing. The guy is seriously the best fisherman I have ever been in a boat with. Everything he seemed to do is flawless. He could tell you about a bird over here and be catching a bass over here. It's for real. It's for real. Last event I did was Claire. I had Corey Johnston day 1. And I had Seth Fighter day 2.
You were Corey was supposed to have a camera day 1. We had to take it out of his boat. So you were correct on that.
You gave him then I went in. Just make whatever. Yeah. But dude, Corey's a beast. Corey is an absolute beast who pretty much is as silly as it sounds, he doesn't do much wrong on the water. All right. Like that guy, especially with the smallmouth bass. I've spent a lot of time in the boat with Corey, not just at St. Clair, but he don't fool. There's misbehaving with Corey, but not misbehaving with Corey in the bass. Okay, put it that way. Last thing about Claire, day 2, Seth Fighter. Again, Seth's a dear friend of mine, and I fish with him often. But I got to see a different Seth Fighter fishing with him as a marshal, because this was the new Seth Fighter learning the forward-facing sonar, trying to perfect it and get better at that craft for this northern swing of events. Difficult. And it was cool to watch and him bring out the chair, the Fritz chair, as he called it, so he could periscope better. But man, I mean, I learned everything, even from my buds, being a Bassmaster Marshal.
Pat, cool. Appreciate all you do for us and what you'll do for Kyle in the future. And
yes,
thanks for being a marshal.
The blue and gold, I bleed blue and gold.
Yes, it's very cool to see your pride for B.A.S.S, and we're thankful for that as well. And I know Kyle and I both carry not only obligation to uphold the brand, but also sentimental portions of it as well. So,
yeah, bud. Well,
I just want to say, for anybody that's made it to this point and doesn't realize it's a joke, Pat Renwick is one of my favorite people on earth. I just like giving him a hard time. So
no, we're going to keep it going.
All those things Ronnie said, I don't want anybody to get the wrong message. All those things Ronnie said,
you're such a nice guy. Hey, this is taped, right?
Maybe.
You guys want to sing a song?
Sure, let's sing a song out.
Okay, so I don't know if you know this, but I got together with Bo Dowden, Bassmaster class, and we wrote Chicago Blues song for you guys. Part of this is true, part of this is not true. I'm gonna let you decipher what is and what's not. But I want to see if you guys can clap me a beat. Are you ready?
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you the beat, and I want you to clap it. And we're gonna see if this works or not. All right, you ready? All right, here you go. I can't hear it. It's cutting it out.
Oh, which is good because for the podcast people, they don't need to hear.
All right, you ready? I had me a time on the Bassmaster Inside Show. Well, I had me a time on the Bassmaster Inside Show.
I can't even hear the harmonica.
I-M-E. Oh, yeah, don't you know?
We need some StrayCast microphones because I can't hear the harmonica. But Pat, that was fantastic. All I know is you can carry a tune even if I can't hear the beat. Pat Renwick, everybody, thank you so much, Pat, for joining us. And we can't wait to see you in 2024, man.
Yeah, Bass Galaxy, Bass Nation, I love you guys. Peace. Thanks again, boys, for having me on. Take care.
Of course.
You're the man.
The one and only Pat Renwick. And we're going to jump right into our next guest who has been on the line for a few minutes now, waiting for his turn so eagerly. And you may not know this guy like you knew Pat Renwick, but this man, Les Cook, has been a Bassmaster Marshal so many times. He had to email me a list of guys that he's gone with because there has been some special moments in the boat. Les, can you hear us? How are you, man?
I can hear you. How you doing, man?
We are doing fantastic. So it's great to talk to you today. For one, Kyle and I are excited about this Marshal episode because it is Marshal sign up week. And for us, we talked about how Marshals mean something to us. They help us do our job. They fill the pieces in together, but also we hear the echoes from anglers, from weekend anglers who jump in the boat with these Elite Series pros and get to learn things, experience things, and have a great day. That'll be a core memory for the rest of their life. And I know you've had a lot of those moments as well. So thanks for jumping on. And then you're going to tell us about some of those stories as well. But man, appreciate you investing your time in the Marshal program.
Yeah, sure. I'm a huge advocate for this program, especially from the very first time I jumped in one of these boats. I came away from that tournament thinking, man, why doesn't everybody do this? This is such an amazing opportunity with lifelong memories. I can't advocate for it enough.
Ronnie sent me the list that you sent him, and one of the first things that pops out to me was 2020 Kyle Welcher. You did shoot the video of the 10-pounder. Is that correct?
I did shoot that video. That was one of the most memorable experiences out on a boat that I think I'll ever have. And it was amazing to watch that happen. And it was really cool to shoot that video. And of course, it got a lot of airtime. And that's amazing. But what was really more memorable to me is watching Kyle struggle in the first part of that day. And of course, he doesn't have a camera with him. I'm new to this. I'm just kind of keeping quiet, and I'm a sounding board for him. And he's talking it through like, I'm struggling here, and this isn't working. This should be working. It's not working. And he goes, you know what? I'm a poker player. I'm going to increase my odds and go with what I think is better odds. And he changed. He pivoted. He went out and he tried something completely new. Got on something a little bit, and the next thing, whammo! He hits that big fish. And remember, Kyle that was his rookie year. That was his very first tournament with the elites. And so I hope that video helped kind of propel his career, which of course he's earned it. I mean, look at him now. He's an amazing fisherman. He's always earned it. But hopefully that helped with his sponsors and everything else.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where we get exposed to these anglers. Now we see them in the opens on Bassmaster Live. We'll see them in the college series in the bracket, and we kind of already have seen them fishing in the boat. But for that to really be the first day or first shed, ounce of footage of somebody fishing, and it's a giant fish in a crucial moment of a shortened event, 3 days. He almost wins that event, and that was a pivotal day. So that's a piece of footage that I think when you sent it to me, I was like on Bass Live losing my mind. Like, holy cow, I got to get to the screen of knowledge. I got to show you what just happened. Holy cow, this is going to be the biggest fish of the year or something like that. And like you said, it was very monumental to his career. Getting off to a hot start in an event just like Lee Livesey, 2019, his first time fishing the Bassmaster Elite Series. He has that dock catch, and that propelled him until he wins events, and now he is such a household name, like you said, Kyle AOY. So tell me, what made you first sign up for it? Where's your fishing background? Are you an avid angler on your own? Were you getting into the sport years ago when you wanted to be a marshal to learn? Had you caught some in a pond and you're like, I don't really know what it takes to be a pro. Let me go ride with these guys. How did you get involved to begin with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started fishing when I was in my 20s. That's probably about 40 years ago now. I'm not quite 60 yet. I'm exaggerating. But I struggled a little bit at first, kind of learning on my own. And I lived in an area that didn't really have the pro series guys coming around. And I watched on TV, like, a lot of the guys that are listening now or watching now. And I always thought it would be cool to check out how these guys do this. Finally, we settled into this area over here near Palatka. We live in St. Augustine, Florida, and Palatka is close by. And I was fishing on the St. Johns River for a couple of years, and then when the opportunity came, and basically Bassmaster came back to Palatka, I thought, I want to see what these guys do on this new fishery, because I was relatively new too, and relatively new to this area. I've been fishing a couple of years. The St. Johns River will humble you, but it also has an opportunity to really pay off. And I wanted to see how a pro who fishes all over the place, doesn't specialize in any one place, how they approach someplace new, like I had just done recently, and see, what do they do different, or what can I do to improve mine. I'm not really a tournament angler. I just do it for fun, but it gave me a bit of insight into something I maybe never would have thought of.
I gotta ask, in all transparency, have you ever went back and fished the 10-pounder hole from Kyle Welcher on your own time?
So I think I misunderstood you. How many times have I gone back to that place?
That would make sense as well. That would certainly make sense as well. To me, the most fascinating thing of this is, like, naturally, you've been with so many guys on so many various bodies of water. The stories are probably endless, but is there like one story you could tell that was like you went with somebody that you didn't expect to be a certain way, if that makes sense, like super friendly, talkative, where it just opened your eyes, like maybe you didn't have a perceived notion of the guy, and then you walked away from it like, that's one of my favorite dudes to be around?
Yeah, so I approach things a little bit different. I try not to prejudge really anybody, and I try to kind of feel for myself. So what I do when I get on the boat is I just kind of sit back and try to relax and let them set the pace. Are they talkative? Are they not talkative? Are they talking to me? Are they talking through me? And most guys, what I found, they're phenomenal dudes. They want to chat. They want to get to know you a little bit. You're spending 8 hours of your day out there. They're interactive. They want to teach you. If you have questions, always ask the questions. I've never had anybody, kind of turn their back to me and just not want to talk throughout the day. And I will tell you, though, one person that I didn't have any preconceived notions of, but that really made an impression on me was Brandon Card. I mean, nicest guy I think I've ever met, not just in bass fishing, but that guy is a good dude.
That's awesome. And this year, obviously, you went with him in 2022. But then to see him this year go through all his adversity health-wise and have such a great season and make the Classic as well is pretty cool to see that. When I'm looking down this list, I mean, you can there's places you've been to Palatka multiple times, Lake Eufaula in Alabama, Gunnersville, the classics, not only at Hartwell, but also Ray Roberts, Okeechobee, Harris Chain, things like that. Some of these names pop out as like, I remember that footage, and Stetson Blaylock at the Harris Chain in 2022 was one of them, a giant at the end of the day off the bed. And I believe it was the same day, or it was the day after, his father-in-law had passed away, and it was an emotional day, and you got to be in the boat with some of these guys at their hardest time, and then their triumphs like that. That had to be really cool. But tell us a little bit about Stetson Blaylock in that day, because that was such a memorable catch. I think I used it in the top 10 catches of the week as well. I stole that and put it in the video.
Well, I guess it's not really stealing if I say, yeah, it's yours. But and I think we sort of signed a contract when we're getting in saying that, you guys get
For sure.
the tape.
Yeah.
So no, but Stetson, honestly, very humble sort of guy. It was an emotional day for him because he had just lost his father-in-law, and it was more than just kind of a distant relationship. This is somebody who was very much like a father to him. He knew that he would have wanted him to continue fishing. And I don't know why, but that fish that he caught at the last part of that day just was really important. And you could feel it. It was palpable. We knew there was a fish there. And he had seen it, but there was a guy shore fishing for that. And he's obviously going to let the guy that's already engaged with that fish to stay engaged. And we just went on about our merry way. But then the guy packed up and left, and he said, I got about 5 minutes. I'm going to give that a shot. And so he went over there, and he pulled that big girl off the bed, and it was like a flood of emotions that came through him as he caught that fish. And I mean, we had to turn and burn to get through that canal to get back to the launch ramp. But to be a part of that entire day was just absolutely phenomenal. And I can't say enough good things about him. He's a good guy. They're all good guys, really.
I'm going to jump in, Kyle, real quick. The Ray Roberts Classic's also on there, and Brock Mosley was somebody you rode with. So coming into that, or after practice for that Ray Roberts Classic, the rumblings were, this is Brock Mosley's Classic to win. Like, this is a summertime event. He's had a good practice and just fell flat on day one. It wasn't easy out there, so it didn't do well on day one. Now he's going out there probably flatter than he had been all week. You're his Marshal on day two. He busts a big bag day two. Then he busts a big bag day three and ends up finishing in the top 10 in the Classic. And now it's what could have been as his roommate wins. But tell me a little bit about second place Brock Mosley and that budding star that has now since then won an elite event and kind of conquered some of those demons. But in that moment was at his lowest of low on the biggest stage and had such a huge day with you.
Yeah, he felt the pressure all day. You could just tell he was really feeling the pressure. When I'm in the boat and I'm talking to guys, I always want to like convey positivity, like reinforce positivity. I'm not going to just sit back and be quiet. And then he started kind of hitting a couple of places, and I started getting excited, and he started getting excited, and he started pulling in a decent sized bag, of course. Hank went on to win that. But I'm going to tell you a little story that maybe everybody doesn't know. At the very end of that tournament, we had, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes to kill. And so those guys don't come in a minute early. I mean, they're using every bit of their time because you never know what's going to happen in that last minute, right? Everybody's got a story. So he went around the corner from the launch ramp and hit kind of a spot that was really close. So he knew he could just bebop over to the launch ramp or the check-in area as soon as time was up. But he wound that time down to the very last second and then ran up to pull up his trolling motor, and the cord snapped. And his trolling motor was down and he couldn't get to the ramp. And he hollered out some sort of that was guttural that I think somebody heard across the lake. And I don't remember who it was, but one of the other anglers came over and actually took his fish on board and transported Brock to the ramp so that he could get those fish weighed in. Still a good, and I stayed with the boat and to make sure that nobody messed with his boat. And then he came back and picked me up and got it fixed. But that guy had so much adversity during that tournament, and to have the smile on his face that he did, and to have that good day that he had, even with that adversity, props to Brock.
Les, obviously you get considered amongst the small group of super marshals. That's obviously the term that gets used a lot. And a huge part of that is how much you contribute to Bass, the production of the TV show and the live show, to the website and the blog, all these things that you contribute to. I guess, to somebody that has not marshaled before, or, has only marshaled a couple times, one, any tips and tricks for people wanting to do that? And then two, just the value and the importance, because Ronnie and I could talk about it all day long because we're the ones producing it on the back ends. But, you personally, you understand that, like, those videos, these crazy catches, the Mosley buzzbait catch there on Ray Roberts and the Kyle Welcher 10-pounder, these are parts of history that people will, like, be able to see forever because you did, a job that you're not required to do.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Lisa's asked me to kind of say something at Marshall meetings because I do have a little bit of experience. And the first thing that comes to mind when talking to somebody, maybe this is their first time or maybe they're considering doing it, go in with the mentality that you're just going to have fun. Just have fun. Go out and have fun. This is kind of a benefit for those folks that want to ride along. They want to learn something. Taking videos is not required. Taking photographs is not required, but it's fun. To me, I enjoy taking videos. I wouldn't say it's a hobby, but it's something I do enjoy. I think I'm kind of good at it. I think I've got a few videos out there that are nice. I'll be humble about that, but the first bit of advice is just go out and have fun. Second to that, if you enjoy taking video, take some video. But what I take away from that, and there may even be some guys out there that are, that's their sole reason is they want to catch that great video, and more power to you. You get out there and do it. But to me, my takeaway really is interacting with these guys, learning that they're human beings. They're not immortals. They're humans. All good guys, good connections. Makes me respect them. Makes me respect the profession. When I do take videos, I'm trying to promote their sponsors. These guys struggle sometimes with having the budget to go through a whole tournament season, and they have to have sponsors to make that worthwhile so that they can still put food on their table. So those are kind of the things I contribute. But taking away, I get to learn. First of all, I get to ride in every type of boat that there is, so that when I go out to pick a boat, I know which one I want. Phoenix boats. I'm sorry. So you get to learn what's comfortable, what's not comfortable. But also, again, I learn a lot about approaching certain situations when I'm by myself. The river changes every day. Go out pre-fishing for a tournament. You're locked in, man. You got a solid pattern. You got a honey hole. You go there the next morning. It's not even 10 hours later, and you go to that same honey hole and you won't catch a bite. So seeing how these guys can kind of pick things apart and look at things in a new way, those are the learning opportunities that I get. It makes me a better fisherman in general, but just being a part of something as well. This is Bassmaster, B.A.S.S, the organization, is a great organization. Conservation, promoting these, tournaments. I can't say enough good things about being part of the organization.
So I'll ask you this. We always go to Florida in February when it could be cold, could be bundled up, and it doesn't feel like the Sunshine State. We're going to be there in April this year. Will you be there for one or both of the Elite Series events, or any for the 2024 season? And if so, what do you expect to be different in April from the Marshal perspective than in February, other than more enjoyable weather?
Man, I'm all about that weather. A quick story about the very first time I marshaled with Lee Limacy here at Palaca in Florida in the wintertime. I'm going to hit that real quick and then I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about him, and I ran into him at the dinner we had before the first day, and I asked him, "Hey, I'm your marshal. What's our ride? What can I expect?" And he looked at me. He said, "It's a boat that you've never heard of before, and you're going to want to take some ibuprofen before you get here and all day long."
And we're going to go fast.
Yeah. And it was not one of those comfortable boats. So the nice thing is I'm not going to be all bundled up like I had to be before. I hope April is a little bit nicer. But my personal plan, I am definitely hitting the Harris chain. Hopefully I'll run into your parents there, Ronnie.
Yeah.
And then I enjoyed meeting him when I was there last time. And then I can't marshal for Palatka because a friend of mine's having a wedding on a cruise ship and I have to go. So I'm going to be really disappointed to meet the
unacceptable.
I know. I wish that B.A.S.S would have consulted with me before they put out their schedule.
Honestly,
so that I could
for
let
sure.
them know when I was available.
I told them when Marlo's birthday was, so they could avoid her birthday, and they avoided. So that's good. But
there you go.
Well, Les,
I'll take it.
I appreciate what you do for the program, for the organization, contributing, and for the memories that you'll grow old with. You may think you're old now, but think about, in 10, 15 years, and you think about those special moments as Kyle Welcher could be a multi-time AOY champion. He could be a classic champion in the future. And you got to be in the boat, his first tournament ever at the pro level, or all of these different anglers, amongst, various times. And so you can say, I was with so-and-so back then, even riding with Micah Frazier and Joey Cifuentes and Matty Wong this year at Okeechobee. That's three totally different personalities and backgrounds. That's a guy who was on his way out because he wants to spend time with family. It's a guy who's about to win 2 Elite Series events. And it's a guy who was, by the end of the season, was fishing for his career. Very, very crazy to see when you look and stack them all up, who you've been with and what you've learned. So thank you for doing it. And man, the sign up is this week that the podcast is going out. So we'll make sure Super Marshal Les Cook gets in, but yes, everybody else, make sure you get in.
Yeah. And I switched over to lifetime membership, so I get a little early.
Oh yeah. A couple days heads up.
The little heads up to anybody who wants to do it, get that lifetime Bass membership. So you get to sign up early so you can make sure you can be out there on day 3.
That's fantastic. Les, appreciate you, man. Thank you for joining us. And we can't wait to talk fishing with you when it's in the midst of the game during elite events. So
sounds great.
Awesome.
I appreciate you guys.
Kyle, that is one of our guys, Les Cook. A different perspective than Pat Renwick, but man, Les and the next guy, Rick Moore, have been a part of some of the best moments on the boat that we have witnessed, in the last, at least, during and post COVID. We'll say that.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it really is. I mean, that's kind of when I started thinking about it. I had no idea before I started looking at the list live about that Kyle Welcher catch, but I started thinking about it. It's like, that video, I mean, was nothing short of viral. I mean, it really was.
Gosh. I mean, we put it in the TV show. It's in the TV show.
Absolutely insane. It was just because he had the foresight to video what was going on. That's just crazy. And I said it already, but I mean, it's literally hearts and days, and every day is a part of history, but especially when it's those days that change the course of, in that case, like you mentioned, kind of changed the course of his career. I guarantee you, not only for the tournament's sake for Kyle on that day, but, having that video is so valuable, for
that
Kyle.
Viral moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. And yeah, like you said, our next guest has been, I at this point, I feel like he's been with literally every single Elite Series angler. So pretty much just ask a question about whoever, and he's probably got an answer, I would guess.
Yeah, and no relation necessarily Rick Moore or Ronnie Moore, no relation there, but I wouldn't mind if he was, my uncle or whoever. Rick, how are you doing, man? Appreciate you joining us today.
I'm doing excellent, thanks.
We were just talking, and I was saying there was no relation that I knew of between you and me, even though we share a last name, but I wouldn't mind if you were a relative because of how you cover the sport from your position in the boat with these guys as a marshal. Rick, give us a little bit of an insight. We talked to Les Cook just a few minutes ago and got his, why did he sign up to be a marshal? Does he have a love of fishing prior? Did he have a little bit of knowledge and wanted to learn more? What was his situation? He gave us that background, but you have been an observer and a spectator in multitudes of high profile things. So give us, what was the first time you heard about the Marshal program, and then and to be a part of it?
Well, I checked last night, and I've done 39 tournaments in 9 years.
Holy cow.
So I've done a couple, okay? And I'd have done 2 more last year, except I had to get out of the New York because of the flights and all that. Anyway, I was into the West Coast tournament scene, late 70s, 80s, early 90s. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of got out of it and got into more big game saltwater for quite a few years, Cabo and all those areas. And that kind of took over. When I retired in 2005, I thought, okay, I'm going to get me a little bass boat. I'm going to get back into it. Well, strangely, and unknowns to me, there were a lot of techniques that didn't exist when I quit. A wacky, what is that? On and on and on and on. And it almost became a joke with all my buddies. So a couple of years later, after I kind of started fishing again, the elites came to the Delta in 2015. I thought, okay, I'll throw my hat in. So I did the Delta and Havasu. That was my first two. Rather enjoyed it, and actually have one or two lifelong friends from that original tournament series that I did. Did 3 the next year, and then got crazy and started doing just whatever I felt, up to 7 a year, and all the classics since then. So for me, it was initially I needed to catch up. I had been out of it 15, 20 years, and I had a lot of catching up to do. And then it became, I was retired. My wife's retired. So we vacation in Europe periodically. We'll go over with the backpack in 4 or 5 weeks. But I haven't seen a lot of the United States. And this was an opportunity. She goes with me to a few of them. If there's opportunity for her to do something, as you know, a lot of these places are somewhat remote. But it's a good time. I've gotten to see a lot of the U.S. that I never would have seen otherwise.
So while you're doing the Sabine River, she's gator hunting and filling tags for gators, or what?
I wouldn't be surprised if I came back and she was doing it, but no, she's a big bicycle rider. So we'll rent a bike and she'll ride, 70, 80 miles all day while I'm fishing.
That's awesome.
Wish I was fishing, watching fishing.
Watching fishing.
So Rick, you kind of alluded to this, but obviously just tell the viewers where you're from, just to put in perspective. You travel to these tournaments. It's not like these are in your backyard and it's just going to your home lake. I mean, you go to tournaments that are not close.
Yeah, and this had to be a serious hobby, or I would not spend the money I've spent yearly on this endeavor. But I'm in Central California, Monterey County, and which, as you know, on the West Coast here, access to a lot of good bass fishing. But because most of the tournaments are on the opposite side of the U.S., requires a lot of traveling. I used to stay in hotels. I now only stay in Airbnb. So the costs have gotten significant, but it is a great hobby. Made a lot of good friends, and I feel like I'm contributing. I do a lot of volunteer, different organizations for different things, and B.A.S.S is one of them. I look at it as a volunteer. I learn a lot, make some friends, both marshals. I've got lifelong friends now with marshals that we get together. We could pretty well get the scoop on any tournament, whether we're there or not, if you know what I mean.
Somebody's in it in your circle.
Yes, and in that circle, they're most of them are still doing some tournament fishing, and a lot of times they'll bring a boat if they're not too far away, and we'll fish after the tournament for a couple of days. So there's a lot of pluses. Now that's personal. The other benefit is just to Bassmaster, and I think it's a give back for me.
Well, we have certainly appreciate it. And like we were talking about with Les, whether it's him documenting Kyle Welcher's 10-pounder at the St. John's River or just being in the boat for some of these moments, I'll sit here on Bassmaster Live looking at an angler trying to get inside their mind as we're live, and I get a text from you that's like, hey, I was with him on day 1 and we went down this stretch, and now it's day 4 and we're watching the final day, and you're like, he told me, he actually got hung up on that dock just a minute ago. It's the same one he got hung up on day 1, but that was when he found the bedfish that now he's on that pattern. So I appreciate you contributing in that way. I know that as a fan of bass, like I was before working with them, I would probably hopefully have the same mindset you do. And so there's been some things that you've witnessed on the water probably, or in the boat, that has stuck with you forever. So can you run us down 1 or 2 or 3 really impactful fish catches or moments or a day with an angler that, like, man, when I'm telling my great grandkids or my grandkids these stories, it's gonna be like, that guy, I saw a star in him.
Well, I've seen a star in a lot of them, and I've seen stars a few times, especially when you're, and I'll just say my first one, and I won't say the angler, but it was at Lake Havasu 2015. He was fishing right next to the beach. Well, I always take out several bottles of water. I can't take a leak, and I need to take a leak. Plus, I always have one or two of these. Every single person out there should have these. I love them. When you get tired and sleepy, crank one of these 300s. It'll get you. And so
it's perfect. The podcast is sponsored by Black Rifle Coffee
Company. In the mail,
okay,
Rick.
there you go.
In the mail.
I'm almost addicted to these things. Okay. And so he's and I can't take a leak. So I grab a water bottle, take a leak, and dump it out. Well, I always collect my trash. I take my trash with me. The next morning, my dear wife got up, went down. Oh, honey, I filled these 3 water bottles from yesterday. I said, did one of them look a little foamy? And so that's been a joke with that particular angler ever since then. So at least I caught it. And another one was I was with an angler, and this was before we've kind of lost the big groups, the 20, 30, 40, 50 boats that would follow. I'm with this person, and I can tell he's doing well because we have 1 boat, 5 boats, 15 boats. You know, pretty soon I counted 55 boats.
Wow.
He can't hardly get out of the cove. I said, I got to take a leak. And I'm 70, okay? And he says, you know, I got to take a leak too. He gunned it, and he said, you're going to have 30 seconds. We flew up between all these houseboats into this dead end that nobody could get to. Had 30 seconds, took care of business, and out we come like he had done what he needed to do. So I've had a lot of good experiences, and rarely do you have a bad experience. And you just learn to figure out your pro, and you go with them. Some of them like to talk, some don't like to talk, and neither is good with me. Now, you know, I like to blog. I send a lot of pictures because I got to stay busy. I can't sit in the seat and do nothing all day. A lot of that has changed. There's a lot of marshals that are YouTubing now. So there's a lot of information for people that want to find out how to do it, what to do. And I would encourage anybody to do it that has the slightest inkling to do so. Even if they just go out one tournament, it's well worth it. You know, I'm on the extreme, but a lot of guys are close to a lot of these lakes. And it's like I said, it's a good give back. You learn a lot, you make some good friends. And it's just, you know, I think it also, we need more marshals because we're running short on a lot of the tournaments. And I think you need the marshal to keep the credibility and trust for the organization, in the organization. And that's what I mean by give back. I feel like it's a way for me to volunteer and give back.
Rick, I got to give you your due credit here. Obviously, you know, Ronnie and I just mentioned the term super marshal. I feel like the term super marshal only became a thing because of Rick Moore. And I could be completely wrong, but I'm certain that's correct. You know, I had the opportunity, obviously, to talk to you and work with you a lot, even when I was still at JM through the Skype, and then obviously now more hands-on that we're both at events at the same time. But you know, from my perspective, it almost seems like you've taken on without being told to or even asked to, or it's not responsible. You know, it's not your responsibility, but you've taken on like a leadership role in this and like been able to help other people and kind of encourage people to do this. What has all that been like for you?
You know, and not just myself, but that circle of friends I was talking about, we are continually trying to convince people to sign up. A lot of them are back east, so it's easier for them to grab onto somebody and convince them. I will say, I think I convinced 2 from Oahe, 2 new buddies. Met him at Oahe, and I talked up the Classic like there was no tomorrow, and they both went to the Classic with their wives. So,
that's awesome.
Sometimes you just need to kind of push it and just keep talking about it, even from a distance for me. And like I said, I run into them at the tournaments a lot of times, and quite a few others that would come up and ask, well, what's this all about? Why do you do this? And on and on. And then you just got to stop and tell them why.
You get a little bit of VIP access at the Classic as well, where every single person is trying to keep you out of places, and you're like, yo, I'm a marshal. I'm with the boat, and you get to get in there and see things. So do you have any plans for 2024? The schedule came out. Got a couple in Florida, couple in the Louisiana, Texas region, couple in Alabama, and then obviously the Northern Swing. And if so, coming from the West Coast, is there a lake that you've been to Marshall for the Elite Series that you've like, I want to go back there someday? Like this place is my style, or I like the way this tournament fished as a Marshal sitting there watching.
Yeah, well, for sure, I'm doing the first two, which is unusual this year because I'm in charge of the PGA Tour when it goes to Pebble Beach, AT&T. So I
That's
always have
awesome.
to miss the first one or two. The schedule changed this year, and so I'm going to be able to go to the first two. I will be at the Classic. I'm really looking forward to it and seeing who does and who doesn't get redemption after the last time we were there. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. And then, you know, come hell or high water this year, even if it's 16 hours of flying like it was going to be this last year, I'm going to make sure I go back up to the Northern Swing because to me, it's two of the most beautiful lakes in the country. And I've had some very, very wild rides on the St. Lawrence and Champlain before. One that we broke the graphs off and broke the trolling motor. It was a good ride back.
You didn't get broken, did you?
No, he kept asking me, and I said, no, keep going, keep going, keep going. I'm hanging on for dear life.
See, when a 70-year-old Marshal gets in the boat, a lot of pros are like, oh no, this isn't going to be good. I'm going to be reckless. They're going to get broken. And Rick is like, buddy, I'm tougher than you. I've been in more boats and elites than you have. You know, you're a rookie. I've been in 40 of these things.
Yeah, well, the key is do not look feeble when you get in the boat. And when you get out of your seat, force yourself to jump up. Don't look like some cripple.
If you groan, then they will groan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they turn around and look and say, what the heck? I did fall in the water in Coulter's boat one time. And fortunately, it was in only 3 foot. He's going to back the boat up. He backs the boat up. So then put the power poles down. Okay, puts them down. The skag of the motor hits a boulder. And I'm taking pictures, of course, and there I go. And I'm more worried about keep my camera dry and rip this life jacket off because I didn't want to have to go pay the $70 to recharge it. So yeah, we've had some good times.
That's funny.
Rick Moore is all of us with the CO2 cartridges and the life jackets. Everybody. Exactly. I still owe a friend from like 8 years ago a CO2 cartridge because I left his life jacket in my boat and it rained, of course, and blew up. And we're still fighting about that to this day. But Rick, I got to ask you, I think I've asked you this in person before, but you know, you've obviously had the chance to go with so many different anglers. Not that I can really do anything about it, but I'm just curious of what, if you had like a wish list, like guys you haven't been with yet that you would like to, you know, spend the day with.
Well, I don't know. I think I've been with just about everybody. You know, I have not been with Rick Clunn yet. And
wow.
I've met him a couple times. I actually had dinner with him one night because, again, one of my buddies from Texas knew him and the family. We all went out to dinner. So I had the opportunity to, you know, have dinner with him, but have never been in his boat. And obviously his age, I'm in total admiration for. In my opinion, he's tough as woodpecker lips.
That is incredible. Well, I'm just saying, I cannot confirm or deny, but a text may have just been sent just to say, hey, if we get the opportunity, 50th year for Rick Clunn, let's get Rick and Rick together. Magic will happen. Yeah. Rick, is there anything, man, I don't want to be wrong in this, but like you've been around PGA Tour pros, you've been around other professional athletes, and you've been around bass fishermen. Where do they stack up in terms of preparedness, professionalness, cordial? Like, you know, like people think you can just show up and be a fisherman, and they're prepared just as much as other guys, it seems.
Yeah, and that and other sports, as you know, it's behind the scenes, the families, the tension, the travel, you know, changing time zones, all of that is a big effect. I think in a lot of the major sports that move from venue to venue. And I can go out and fish 2 or 3 days in a row and I start getting a little tired. The only tournaments I fish now, and I only fish as a co because I'm lazy now, is the one bass tournaments that are shared weight. They're a lot of fun out here on the West Coast. They do a great job with what they have, and I fish 2 or 3 of those a year. But like I said, I'm older, I'm lazy, and I'm having a good time, and can't hardly beat it.
Well, he's probably scary, Kyle. If he's as good on the back deck blogging as he is fishing, he's going to be one of the best co-anglers to work with. But I'll have one more question before we let you go. You have been a Bassmaster Elite Series Marshal so many times, pre-forward-facing sonar and live scope, things like that, and now you've been in the boat with it. What have you learned or seen the game change as you get to be in the back of the boat in a non-intrusive, whereas a co-angler is like trying to catch fish and they're getting guarded out at times with that technology, but you being in the boat to walk up to the front deck and check it out with the pro or to see it, have you seen that from those with your eyes from that perspective and kind of gotten, I understand this more and I see it as a tool, and people online maybe are overacting, or maybe you're one of the overactors. I don't know.
No, I have all 3 brands on both my boats. So no, I'm not overacting. I've learned a lot. For example, I've been out with 2 of the best, Taku and Koya. I've been out with both of them. They do it differently, but they do it very well. I've also been out with quite a few of the other guys that are, say, middle age, and they're darn good with it. And I've been impressed. I've seen them use it where people say it can't be used, and that's where I learned a heck of a lot with forward-facing sonar, and where I came to believe in it. And of course, I do it for fun, and it's a great time. But they also, most of them will share a lot of what they're doing, why they're doing it, when they do it, when they don't do it, and that type of thing. Yeah, it's the hot topic right now, and I think it's going to be here. It's going to be around. I certainly wouldn't share a lot of my conversations with the pros I've had over the years, and it's changed. The funny thing is, I've looked at some old photos, and it seems like up until about 2018 to 2019, there was only one graph on the front of every pro's boat, and I've got thousands and thousands of photos. And I've looked at them and I thought, that's kind of weird. That's about, it seems like, when the ball started kind of rolling. And now, it looks like a control center. But it's a good time. And, like I said, most of them are just very, 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 very helpful from a learning standpoint. And I think it's here to stay. It's part of the game. The rules may change. The rules get adjusted in a lot of sports. They may be, slightly modified, but I think it's here to stay.
Only Kyle Jessie can get the rules changed from here on out. It seems he's got the pull. He's got the pull in Birmingham.
Ronnie, if you don't mind, I gotta ask one more question, because I feel like this is like Rick's the right person to ask this to. So I get the sense a lot of times, covering guys, there's certain guys when I watch them, even during competition, I'm like, you would never know that these guys are fishing for $100,000 because they're just chatting it up. They're just talking. It's like they're just fun fishing, and you'd never know. Of all the guys you've spent a day in the boat with, who is the most like that? Like in a positive way, like they're just laid back, they're just talking, and you would never know that they're fishing for $100,000 or 300 plus.
Well, can I mention somebody that's no longer with us?
Oh, that's totally fine, because they'll be back some point. They'll be back at some point.
Now, this guy won't, but I love him dearly. Oh, Jeff Crete will never, ever stop talking.
That's funny.
And who is just a blast to be with? Even I've been with him several times, and he is just great to talk and be with, is Swindle. That guy can, even I've had him been with him on good days, on bad days, and he's always the same. And just a great, great, shall I say, entertainer. That's the way I look at it. Great guy. And, and surprisingly, as good and as many tournaments as Polinick has won, he takes the time during the day to explain what he's doing, right when he's doing it. He's that way. Zaldane's that way. There's so many that they talk, and like I say, I've been with them enough, good days and bad days, and they're pretty much the same.
Kyle, it seems like there's probably a lot of Elite Series pros that remember the good days when Rick Moore was their marshal and would love to bring that superstition back. Maybe every time Rick rides with him, it's good. And even the bad days, they're like, you know what? It could have been way worse if Rick wasn't in the back of the boat, just being there, good presence. So we appreciate what you do for Bass. Thank you.
One more quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
With regard to what you said about previous, and just popped in my head. We're going back to Toledo Bend. And I kind of have a hiccup in my getup with that. I was years ago with Jason Christie, and he almost won. And that was back when they didn't want to give you guys where they were at. And they're bugging and bugging. And Jason says, don't tell him right now. I don't want him to know where I'm at. And where he's at, everybody knows because it was on video because I think he almost won that tournament. And he was on video later. But as you know, you got to run those boat lanes. And the day I was with him, we got beat up, slammed, blowing sideways, every which way. So we get done at the end of the day, and he goes, well, how do you feel? And I said, I feel fine. He says, oh, yeah, you guys got it over there. You got it easy. I got in the shower that night. My whole butt was raw. So, yeah.
That was a long track up north.
That was a tough one.
On Toledo.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, appreciate what you do for Bass, being a part of it as a marshal. Like we said, there's a lot of pride that comes with the brand, the tournament organization, Ray Scott, what he created, Trip Weldon, what he held through, Lisa Talmadge, Dave Mercer, everybody that's on site and makes it possible, all the way to the show where Tommy and Z have held that flag for so long. So appreciate you doing your part and spreading the wealth. I know we'll see you in 2024, especially at the Bassmaster Classic, and you'll probably have a ragtag group of guys that you've convinced to come with you as well. So thank you for what you do, and continue to bother us. You only help piece the puzzle together more.
Sounds good. Take care, boys.
Awesome. Rick Moore, my long lost uncle. We're going to call him that, Uncle Rick. And, man,
if Rick Moore was your uncle, he'd be like the cool uncle that everybody wanted to spend Thanksgiving.
100%.
Dude ever.
Yeah,
Love
he's going to be the one with the stories that everybody wants to come sit on my lap. And I'm going to tell you about the day I was with Jason Christie and he was eluding the cameraman. It'll be a great one. But super cool to see those three perspectives, man. Pat Renwick, we know him embedded in the industry. Les Cook and Rick Moore. You should have saw their responses when I texted them and said, hey, you want to be a part of a podcast about the Marshal program? And they were like, do I ever? Like, come on. Like, I get to talk about this. This is what I do for fun. This is super cool to be a part of it. So they infiltrate our lives. They care about our families now. They probably know your wife's name. They know my daughter's name. It's very, very cool to see that transpire.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the marshals are special. I mean, again,
sure,
like we talked about earlier, I mean, literally every person that gets to do it gets to share like a special moment, you know, with that angler, with the tournament. Like, just the whole experience is really awesome. However, yeah, it is really cool to have, you know, some of these guys that go to a lot of the tournaments and get to marshal multiple events. And like you said, you get to know them on a personal level. And it's like, to an extent, it's like they're part of the crew because you see them every time. You can basically count on them being there. And you notice when they're not. Like, you notice when Rick Moore is not at a tournament. You're like, I haven't seen Rick Moore this week at all.
I do scan down the pairings list and I'm like, who's with this? Oh yes, like we're gonna get good blogs from this, or like it never fails.
Who are you telling? And when I was doing the Marshal or the Skype stuff for the live show, it was like, praise God whenever Rick Moore was with somebody we needed to get coverage with, because it was like, you know, even the guys that weren't on the Marshal list, I was always just blown away by how willing they were to download the app, do all like the things I would ask them to do, just to get them on the live show. But I think that's the thing, like, these guys understand that it's a huge help for these pros to get the exposure, to be on the show and everything. And, you know, all the guys that we had on the podcast today perfectly, you know, display that, and they know that, and they understand it, and they do everything possible to help. Like I said earlier, even though they're not required to, like, they do everything possible and more.
I am a little concerned with Rick. He needs to be out with some smash up days of fish catching, because he told 2 stories about going to the bathroom on the boat, and I did not expect those stories to come out, but we'll give him love for that. Kyle, we we're approaching the sign up date. I don't know if this podcast is going up the day of sign up. I know life members get to sign up early, like Les was talking about. But if you've never been a Marshal, this is a great opportunity to do so in 2024. Sign up right along with a pro for at least 2 days of competition. You'll get some gear, you get the access to the pros, you get some lifelong memories as well. And if we text you for an update, now you've got our phone numbers for life as well. So don't abuse that, but just you'll have that. So but we appreciate the Marshals and what they do. It's a cool look into a pro sport that you don't get in any other sport. I know you'd love to be in the dugout with Corey Seager after he jacks one, and you get to ask him what he saw when he was at the plate, or what he saw with that bedfish like Stetson Blaylock and Les when they caught that big one. So awesome opportunity. Sign up, be a Marshal. You won't regret it. It'll be an awesome opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It really is an awesome opportunity for guys to tag along. Again, like you said, it's a perfect example. The best of the best. You get to literally spend the day as they compete. Like there's no other sport you get to do that. So it's a really special opportunity. I would certainly encourage anybody and everybody that wants to do it to do so.
Well, there it is, episode 157 of the Inside Bassmaster Podcast, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company. Perfect plug right there from Rick Moore. Make sure when you're up there early in the morning, out there for long days, you have one of those as well as some water, and you'll be good to go. But for this episode of the podcast, we'll see you in the next one. Next one is the Pattern of the Month segment for December. We'll see you then.